If you buy physical silver, listen up because this is probably one of the most important explainers you're ever going to see. Counterfeit silver. It's a very real and a growing threat. But the good news is, with the right knowledge, you can absolutely protect yourself and your investment. So let's dive in and make sure your stack is secure.
So let me just ask you this simple question. Is your silver real? It sounds basic, right? But the answer is so crucial. The difference between a genuine coin and a worthless piece of metal can be almost impossible to spot if you don't know what you're looking for. Today, we're going to fix that.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this step by step to make you a much more confident buyer. First, we'll get a handle on just how big this problem is. Then, we'll look at how the fakes are actually made and what products they're targeting the most. After that, and this is the good part, we'll give you a practical toolkit to spot them. And finally, we'll wrap up with the golden rules for buying safely. So, first things first, why is this such a big deal right now? I mean, fakes have been around forever, right? Well, the risk today isn't just some theory. It's getting more serious every single day. You know, it really just boils down to two things: motive and means. On one hand, higher silver prices make the potential profit for these counterfeiters absolutely massive. And at the same time, all these advances in technology mean the fakes they're pumping out are getting, well, they're getting scarily good.
And I want to be clear, this isn't some small-time operation happening in a garage. To give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, there was a recent incident in Shenzhen, China, where an estimated 60 tons, that's right, tons, of fake silver bars flooded the market. They looked perfect on the outside, but inside, filled with worthless metal. This is fraud on an industrial scale.
Okay, to spot a fake, you've really got to learn to think like a counterfeiter. So let's pull back the curtain and take a look at the tools and the methods that they're using. First, let's get on the same page about what we really mean by counterfeit silver. This isn't just a sloppy copy. The key word here is intent. What defines counterfeit silver is the deliberate, calculated intent to defraud you, to steal your hard-earned money by passing off a worthless item as the real deal. And as you can see, they've got a few different tricks up their sleeves. The most common fakes are plated. They just take a cheap metal core like copper and put a super thin layer of silver over it. Then you've got the more sophisticated stuff like the hollowed and filled fakes, where they'll actually gut a real bar and fill it with lead. And then there are these really deceptive 100 mils bars, which use confusing language to trick you into buying something with practically zero silver in it. Now, counterfeiters don't target everything equally. They're smart. They go after the most popular, the most trusted, and the most recognized products on the market.
And their number one target, without a doubt, is the American Silver Eagle. But the good news is this coin has a very specific fingerprint you can check. It has to weigh exactly 31.103 grams. Its diameter has to be 40.6 millimeters. The edge has to be reeded or ridged. Now, for coins made in 2021 or later, look closely for a small gap in that reading. That's a key security feature. You also want to look for really sharp details, the artist's initials, AW, and of course, the sound. A real eagle, it rings like a bell.
Now, for you larger investors out there, the biggest threat is with 100-ounce bars. Because they're so big and valuable, they're the prime target for those really sophisticated, hollowed and filled fakes. The counterfeiters even use a very specific lead-tin alloy that almost perfectly matches the density of silver, which makes them completely impossible to detect just by weighing them. Okay, enough about the problem. Let's talk solutions. Let's get into the simple, effective tests that anyone, and I mean anyone, can do at home. This is your first line of defense, and it's so easy. First, you weigh it and you measure it. A cheap digital scale and some calipers are all you need. Second, the magnet test. Real silver is not magnetic. So if you take a strong magnet and it sticks, it's a fake. End of story. And third, the sound test. Just balance a coin on your fingertip and give it a little tap. That beautiful, long, high-pitched ring, that's the sound of real silver. A fake will just go thud. But here's the thing, and this is important. No single test is perfect. That's why you need to use a few of them together. You see, the weight and magnet tests, they're not going to catch one of those really sophisticated filled bars. And the sound test, it's awesome for coins, but pretty unreliable for big bars. For those, the only truly surefire non-destructive test is an ultrasonic one, which can literally see inside the metal. Now, you might have heard some horror stories about tungsten fakes. Well, let's clear something up. Tungsten is a huge problem for gold, not so much for silver. And the reason is simple physics. Just look at the densities. Gold and tungsten are almost identical, which makes tungsten the perfect filler for a fake gold bar. But tungsten is nearly twice as dense as silver. A tungsten-filled silver bar would be laughably small or way underweight. It just doesn't work.
And this is exactly why, if you're dealing with high-value bars, especially those 100-ounce bars from the secondary market, an ultrasonic tester is the gold standard. It sends sound waves straight through the bar, and it can tell you instantly if there's a different metal, like lead, hiding inside.
Okay, let's bring it all home. Knowing how to spot a fake is a fantastic skill to have, but the absolute best strategy is to avoid ever having to use it in the first place.
These are the 4 rules to live by. Number 1, your source is everything. Only buy from established, reputable dealers. Number 2, price is a huge signal. If a deal seems way too good to be true, it is. Period. Number 3, trust but always verify. Use those simple tests we just talked about. And finally, avoid anything with confusing language like 100 mils. Just walk away.
And what if the worst-case scenario happens and you do find a fake? First, don't panic. Contact the seller immediately. Any reputable dealer will want to make it right. Then report the fraud. And this is the most important part. Whatever you do, do not try to pass the problem on by reselling it to someone else. It's wrong and it's illegal.
At the end of the day, the counterfeit market preys on one thing: a lack of knowledge. By understanding the threat, by knowing what to look for, and by knowing how to verify your silver, you completely change the game. You go from being a potential victim to a protected, savvy investor. So the only question left is, are you prepared?